Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending our WebEx. Today we're going to be taking a virtual tour of one of our museums here in Henrico County. My name is Julian Charity, and I'd like to thank you for attending on behalf of the Henrico Recreation and Parks. And when I ask you a question, or when I say to you, museum, what comes to mind? Is it this? Or maybe this? Maybe this? Or here? Well, this is the Virginia Randolph Museum, and this is where we're going to be taking our virtual tour today. But who is Virginia Randolph? Virginia Estelle Randolph was born in 1870 in the Jackson Ward neighborhood of Richmond, Virginia. She was the third child of Nelson and Sarah Randolph, and she was born only 5 years after the American Civil War. Both of her parents had formerly been enslaved. This young lady graduated at the age of 16 years old from the Richmond Normal School, which is now known as Armstrong High School. After graduation, she began teaching in Goochland County in 1890. By 1893, she was teaching in Hanover County. And in 1894, she was elected to teach at the one-room schoolhouse for black children on Mountain Road in Henrico County. Her very first day, she started with 14 students. She noted that the school was in disrepair when she took over, so she set out to beautify the school by whitewashing the building, planting flowers, even purchasing gravel for the walkways so the students would not have to walk in the mud. And she set out to get to work. Ms. Randolph based her schoolwork, her curriculum, on combining manual arts with academic coursework. You'll see here an image of her students because she believed that education, in its truest and best sense, is the preparation of the child for the responsibilities of good citizenship. Now, those practical skills that she would teach would be brick masonry, sewing, cooking, gardening, even basket making. You see some of her students hard at work. So it should come at no surprise that she was the very first choice by the Henrico County School Superintendent for a new position. Her position would become the very first countywide gene supervising industrial teacher in the South. And Henrico County had more than 20 black schools, and Ms. Randolph would travel to each one weekly. You'll see here a map of those schools. And you can see Henrico County is a rather large county, so there's a lot of traveling, large territory to cover. Her educational plan became known as the Henrico Plan. She developed the very first in-service training program for black teachers and worked on improving the curriculum of the schools. The summary report of her plan, her work, became known as the Henrico Plan. Thousands of copies of this plan were made and sent to supervisors all throughout the South. Now her plan was on the road. Her travels were not limited to just Henrico County. She would now go to other counties in Virginia, down to North Carolina, Georgia. Ms. Randolph was now achieving nationwide fame. But at home in Henrico County, she wanted a new and bigger school for her students. By 1910, Ms. Randolph was determined to have an industrial high school. Through private subscriptions and events, she was able to raise money to purchase property which was then given to Henrico County Public Schools. By 1915, the Virginia Randolph Training School was named in her honor on the grounds of her old one-room school. Unfortunately, just a few years later, the school would burn. But you'll see here, construction did not stop. Ms. Randolph had dormitories built for her teachers and continued with the expansion and rebuilding of the Virginia Randolph Training School using funds from the Rosenwald Fund. And you'll see that even today, the school still stands, but is now known as the Academy at Virginia Randolph. But Ms. Randolph would retire in 1949 as the supervisor of black schools in Henrico County. Upon her retirement, the Mountain Road School, in which she began with only 14 students, now housed 400. Her 55-year career in Henrico County is now over. And the thank yous begin to pour in. In 1953, the Virginia Randolph Foundation, Incorporated, commissioned a bust to be made of Miss Randolph. The foundation was established to plan a suitable memorial for Miss Randolph and annually award scholarships to Henrico County high school students who will attend four-year colleges or universities. Miss Virginia Estelle Randolph would pass away on March 16, 1958, at the age of 87 years old. She was initially interred at Evergreen Cemetery, but her remains were later moved to the educational complex, which continues to bear her name. And in 1970, the Virginia Randolph Home Economics Cottage was made into a museum in memory of Miss Randolph. The Virginia Historic Landmarks Commission designated the museum a state historic landmark. And in 1976, the museum was named a National Historic Landmark by the United States Department of Interior, National Park Service. It is the only building in Henrico County with this distinction. And more honors will continue to come in. The Virginia Department of Historic Resources placed a historical highway marker along Mountain Road in front of the Virginia Randolph Education Center in 1992. And Miss Virginia Estelle Randolph was unveiled as a life-size statue on the Virginia State Capitol Square as part of the Virginia Women's Monument on October 14, 2019. Ms. Randolph is one of only 12 women to receive this distinction. In Ms. Randolph's museum, you will see personal items from Ms. Randolph's home, awards from her educational career, a quilt which Ms. Randolph and her students used to fundraise for the school, trophies from her students, a video on Ms. Randolph's life, photos of her students in their classrooms, a 93-year-old cake, class yearbooks, newspaper articles, information about notable alumni, information about the Jeans supervising teachers from across the South, the bust of Ms. Randolph, her personal dress, more information about Julius Rosenwald and the Rosenwald Foundation, about Anna T. Jeans and the Jeans Foundation, her educational plan, information about the first Arbor Day that she organized in 1908, information about the school curriculum, information about Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois, who were instrumental in the educational plan that Ms. Randolph adapted. Even information about the Mountain Road School and the Virginia Randolph High School. It is our hope that one day you will come and visit the Virginia Randolph Museum. The museum is open on Sundays from 1 until 4 o'clock p.m. and by appointment. And we would love if you have any questions or would love to share a memory of Virginia Randolph, or if any alumni from the school are watching. If you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the question and answer panel, and our panelists will forward them on and we'll answer them as best we can.
Okay, Julian, I have a question for you. Seeing that Mrs. Randolph was very dedicated to the children of Henrico County, did she have any children of her own?
The question was asked, seeing that Miss Randolph was dedicated to the children of Henrico County, did she have any children of her own? Well, Miss Randolph never married and did not have any biological children, but she would foster many children whom would live with her, and she would bring them to school. And I'm sure if you were to ask her, she would say she had hundreds of children, even thousands of children, that she helped to educate and to raise and nurture throughout her career.
All right, Julian, I have another question for you. You mentioned that there was some notable alumni that graduated from Virginia Randolph. Can you maybe go over a few of those?
Well, the question was asked if there were any notable alumni or any people we'd like to elaborate more upon. One will be Tommy Edwards, who was a recording artist, who recorded the song, It's All in the Game. Another would be, blanked his name right now, but a football player, I believe his name was Cornelius Williams, I want to say. Actually played for the Baltimore Colts and played in 2 Super Bowls, Super Bowl III and Super Bowl V. Cornelius Johnson, I'm sorry.
Hey, Julian, we have a question here. Did Mrs. Randolph have any pets?
A question, did Miss Randolph have any pets? I'm not sure about that. I'll have to ask.
Okay, here's another one for you. What are some of your favorite artifacts from the museum and why?
The question is, what are some of my favorite artifacts from the museum and why? One of my favorites would have to be the cake that was given to Ms. Randolph in 1927. The cake is still there. She decided to not cut into it or eat it. So that's one of the things that you would have to come and see to believe that there's a 93-year-old cake in the museum. And I would also love the quilt that Ms. Randolph and students created as a fundraiser to see some of the names of the people who donated to the cause. Many very prominent Richmond names that you'll see, Stuart and Brian, and you'll also see the names of her mother and stepfather and the superintendent of Henrico Schools, as well as Grace Arentz. Most people remember as in conjunction with Lewis Ginner Botanical Garden.
You mentioned she was responsible for the first Arbor Day at Virginia Randolph. There are trees outside today. Are those the same trees that Mrs. Randolph planted for the first Arbor Day?
The question is about mentioning the very first Arbor Day in 1908, and there are trees outside of the museum that are associated with that Arbor Day. Are those the same trees that she planted in 1908? Well, that's a very good question because we don't know. Actually, it's believed that some of them are and some of them aren't, but we'll get more. We're actually trying to get more information on that ourselves.
Is the Virginia Randolph School still an operating school today?
The question is the Virginia Randolph School still an operating school today? The school, not only is there one school, the Academy at Virginia Randolph, there's also the Virginia Randolph Educational Center. So there are actually two schools that are operating under the name of Virginia Randolph on the same complex and property as the original one-room schoolhouse that Miss Randolph operated during her 55-year career in Henrico County.
Can you obtain a copy of the 1963 graduate yearbook?
Can you obtain a copy of the 1963 graduate yearbook? We do have in our collection. We have a few volumes of the yearbooks from the school. We would just have to check through and be able to see which ones that we do have and have any scans that anyone would need to have.
And where did Mrs. Randolph live?
Where did Miss Randolph live? Miss Randolph lived in Jackson Ward. I believe there are 4 different addresses associated with Miss Randolph during her lifetime. I believe the most prominent was on Moore Street in Richmond, which is now mostly under Interstate 95.
Why is it important for us to remember Virginia Randolph today?
The question was asked, why is it important to remember Miss Randolph today? Miss Randolph and her educational plan, adapting manual arts along with academics, is the blueprint for many schools that are still operating today. And it's not a new concept, but Miss Randolph used it during a time where many parents felt it was time to move away from the manual arts. But what's the purpose of having the education if you do not know how to apply it to real life? So knowing Miss Randolph and knowing the struggle that she had in the very beginning, especially in a time where it was not popular to promote schools that were for African Americans, it's very important to know that this educator is doing things that were pioneering in a time where not only as an African American, but also as a woman to do. Miss Randolph's legacy are the thousands of students that she touched, the families that still continue to hold the moniker of Virginia Randolph High School or the training school at Virginia Randolph, and the students that continue to go to her school today.
And Julian, do you happen to know if Mrs. Randolph ever met Maggie Walker?
The question was asked if Miss Randolph ever met Maggie Walker. More than likely, yes. Definitely, yes. We've been trying to hunt down some more information that Maggie Walker attended the Arbor Day celebration in 1908. And being from the same neighborhood and having many of the same ambitions and goals of promoting African American culture and society, there's no way their paths could not have crossed. Any other questions?
I think you covered this already, but we have a question. Were her parents slaves?
The question was asked, were her parents enslaved? Yes, they were. They had been enslaved, and she was born just 5 years after the American Civil War ended.
We have a question. Are they still having a yearly celebration for the Virginia Randolph Society?
The question was asked, are they still having a yearly celebration for the Virginia Randolph Society? The Virginia Randolph Foundation does meet. They meet quarterly, and they still are having their scholarships are still given out to the students from the Henrico County high schools. So they are still very much active.
I have a question. Somebody wants to know what the significance of the 93-year-old cake is.
What is the significance of the 93-year-old cake? The cake was given to Miss Randolph, thanks in her accomplishments. It was made to look like a Western Union telegram, and Miss Randolph, rather than cut into it and devour it, decided to hold on to it as a keepsake, and it is enclosed in glass, and there are no plans to open it anytime soon.
Okay. Somebody wants to know what the construction taking place in front of the museum currently is.
The question was asked, what is the construction that is currently taking place in front of the museum? The Virginia Randolph Foundation, in conjunction with the Academy at Virginia Randolph, the students, they are constructing a monument, a sitting area with bricks that will memorialize the students. The alumni have benches that have been graciously donated by different classes of the school. and an eternal flame and podium, all in memorial to Miss Randolph, so that a person would be able to come and visit and sit in this memorial area and visit her grave, see the many students that she and the school have impacted, and really live the legacy that is Miss Virginia Randolph and the Virginia Randolph High School.
Okay, I think that's about all the answered questions. Well, there's another one. When segregation ended, did the school remain open?
The question was asked when segregation ended, did the school remain open? It did not. The school was closed for a period and then reopened under the name of the Academy at Virginia Randolph.
What organizations was she a member of?
Question was asked, what organizations was she a member of? Ms. Randolph was a member of many different organizations and actually created many civic organizations in order to promote the schools, promote more affection towards the schools, getting parents involved in the students, and therefore promoting the school, and then also creating subscriptions in order to build the number of students that were coming to the school.
Do we have any other questions from our visitors today?
Do we have any other questions from our visitors today? Well, if not, I do want to thank you all for attending, and I hope to see you soon. Come on out to the museum, give us a call, and thank you again. Have a great day.